now. And I have to admit that I'm a little bit idiosyncratic about how I do eyes. I don't like painting the eye directly on the same layer as the face, but that makes it a little bit difficult to do things like to blend things outwards and such. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a hole in the face that the eye is going to peek through. And later on I'll probably collapse the layers into one layer and do a little bit of smoothing at that point. But this helps me to do things like position the iris exactly where I want it to be positioned, and to work on the roundness with a much easier stroke without having to worry about obscuring the outside of the eye, the eyelid and such. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a very special thing. Rather than actually erase that portion, I want to do this in a non-destructive manner. So I want to have a hole through this layer that you can see the eye through, but I want to be able to turn that hole on and off. If for some reason I just don't like the eye that I've done, I can start all over again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a very special device called a mask, and I'll start off with just outlining where that eyeball is going to be peeking through, and I'll do this for both sides at the same time. And the edges of this might be a little bit pointy wherever I've made these little vertices, wherever I set things together. Might not show at that scale, but that's something I can correct later on. And now I am selecting the second eye. Here we go. Almost there. And now that we have them both selected, I'll zoom out just a bit and I'll show you what I'm going to do. Looks like one of my eyes on the sketch is slightly larger than the other. I think I'll probably correct that now, and I'll just pull this one down a little bit. I'll pull this one down rather than I'll pull the bottom down rather than pull the top up, because one of the things I've wanted to do with this race is to accentuate the length of their head and the largeness of the cranium. And to do that, I want the eyes to come down rather than go up, so we have a larger mass up top than we do down at the bottom. And that's probably still a little bit small. I think I'll add one more outline of pixels here across the bottom. And there we go. Now let's see what that looks like without the sketch behind it to throw us off. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. We don't want the eyes to, I don't want to like flip the selection over so that they're identical. People have their eyes, no, people's eyes are not always at the same level or always the same exact shape, and it would look kind of odd if they were. We're not used to seeing that. So now I'm going to do that thing I talked about to make the hole in here. I'm going to create what's called a mask, and for that I go down to my layer tablet, and you'll see as I hold this down, a little yellow tooltip pops up that says Add Layer Mask. It's probably not visible on this video, but if I click that, oops, it masks out the opposite of what I wanted to select. So what I need to do is invert the selection. So I go to Select, Inverse, and now I have everything selected but the eyes. So I have all of this out here. And now if I click that, I'll get the behavior I expected, and there are some holes for those eyes to peek through. And I'll paint on the eyelids and such later. Right now I just want to get that eyeball into position. So this is going to be on a layer below the skin. I'm going to turn off this background white layer for a second, make it a little bit easier to see that this is the checkerboard pattern that Photoshop uses to indicate areas of the painting that are transparent. So you can see that we're seeing right through it. I haven't just made the eyeballs white. So I want to put a layer above this, so I'll click New Layer, and I'm going to call this layer Eyes. And I'll demonstrate what I can do here. I'll pull up, well, we'll start with straight black. We'll add a little bit of color to it later on. Let's choose a good brush. Again, this is like at the very beginning, we just want to lay down, oops, change the opacity to 100%. We just want to lay down base color. So I just want to show you that that's what we can do. I am now painting on the layer behind the skin, but I do not want solid black there yet. I'll get to that black later. The first thing I want to do is I want to add a bit of a gray to the eye to give it some base pixels to work from, and I'll do that. Oops. I'll do that just like that. Now I have, there we are. All right, now I have some base color to work with. I can begin to shape the eyeball, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add an iris. For the color on this, just like before, the color's not really going to matter, but let's choose something that's just a little bit alien. I'm not sure if we want to go with red. That might be a little scary. Let's try a deep purple. One thing I wanted to do was come up with kind of a hybrid between human eyes and the typical alien eyes. The big, solid black eyes that you see on drawings and movies and such. So let's make that a little bit smaller. All right, and that's going to form the basis of our eye. We're just going to have a little bit of the white showing. Now your pupil normally hangs at the very top of your eyelid, so we're going to make that a little bit high. These are extremely saturated at the moment. That'll change. Okay, let's get that. And that's going to form the iris. Now for the pupil, we'll go a little bit smaller. I wanted kind of a bizarre looking eye, so this one is actually going to sit a little bit on top. And I'm going to set this to multiply. This way we'll have a rich black. And let's see what we get here. This is kind of an experiment. Okay, that might be a little bit too black. Let's go and let's make that multiply value about 80% and see what we get. This is kind of the experimental phase. All right, that'll work. That'll work. And we'll do the same thing over here with the eye resting just on the bottom. So there's our basic eye. It looks very strange at the moment. It looks flat and cartoonish. We're going to be adding some modeling to the eye and some reflection to make it look wet. And this tutorial is probably going to run a bit long, so I'm going to split it into two parts and we'll finish up with our eyes next time.